and welcome. It is always a highlight of my week to be with you and to take a few moments to retreat, to refresh, restore, and renew our energy, our focus, and our spirits. There is no question in my mind that just pausing to breathe deeply and to be aware of breathing is healing in and of itself. To join with others in doing so in community, whether virtual or real, enhances our intention even further and strengthens us all in facing whatever may meet us this week. As you well know, I am fascinated by the Jewish calendar and the Jewish cycle of observances, Torah readings, and other sacred readings that arise from time to time on a regular schedule. From that point of view, this week is a banner week as we are approaching Shabbat Nachamu, the minor holiday of Tu B'Av, and the Torah portion of Va'et Hanan, all on the same day, this coming Shabbat, July 24th. I am also reminded that July 24th was my late mother's birthday, and I fondly remember working with her on this week's Torah portion as she prepared to become a bat mitzvah at the time of, I believe, her 82nd birthday. But I digress. From the confluence of three lovely observances in our calendar, let me explain. Just a couple of days ago, we observed Tisha B'Av, a day of mourning and fasting, the most grief-drenched day on the Jewish calendar, as the anniversary of the destruction of both temples in ancient Jerusalem and the anniversary of so many great shatterings in our people's history, as Rabbi Rachel Baron-Blatt explains. And further, it is the psycho-spiritual low point of the year, Tisha B'Av. After that, the emotional tenor of our calendar looks up as we approach the days of awe. Just 6 days after Tisha B'Av, which means the 9th of the Hebrew month of Av, we come to Tu B'Av, which is the 15th day of the Hebrew month of Av. It is heralded by a new moon, a full moon, and is designated as a day of joy. Most American Jews have never heard of Tu B'Av, as it is observed mostly in Israel as a kind of Valentine's Day or even a Sadie Hawkins Day. The Talmud teaches that in ancient times on Tu B'Av, unmarried women would put on white dresses and go dance in the vineyards, and by the end of the night, they would have found husbands. It is a fairly romantic conceit that may inspire us, but may also feel much too simplistic and even unhelpful. The challenge is harnessing the emotional uplift of Tu B'Av to help us climb out of our emotional low places, even if there is no white dress in the vineyards, no simple happily ever after. There's another reason for the observance of Tu B'Av that is explained in the following midrash, which I will share with you, which is also found in the Talmud. Rabbi Levi said, on every eve of the 9th of Av, during the 40 years when the Israelites wandered in the wilderness, and that's the Tisha B'Av, Moses used to send a herald through the camp and announce, go out to dig graves. They would go out and dig graves and sleep in them. In the morning, he would send a herald and say, separate the dead from the living. They would arise and find their number had diminished. In the last of the 40 years, they did this, but when they awoke in the morning, they found themselves undiminished. No one had died during the night. They said, we must have made a mistake in counting. So they did the same thing on the following days, on the 10th, the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, 14th, and 15th days of Av. But still, no one died. When the moon was full, they said, it seems that the Holy One has annulled the decree from all of us. So they made the 15th a holiday. On this date, says the Talmud, the last members of the generation who had known slavery died. The last connection to slavery and to constriction was released. And the punishment which God had declared that everyone born in slavery would have to die in the desert, would not be allowed to enter the promised land, was finished. As a result, God again poured blessings upon the people. We might imagine God saying, that was no fun for either of us. I'm so glad that's over. Let me shower you with love from now on. Thus, this coming Shabbat, which will be Tu B'Av, is a day of great rejoicing because it is the day on which our people realized they had been wholly forgiven and would have to wander no more in the desert. On this Tu B'Av, may we all find ourselves able to shed the last vestiges of whatever has been constricting us, and may we find a new way to relate to God and to each other, steeped in abundant blessings and love. So with the possibility of that uplift or inspiration, let us pause for a few moments to take our first full, deep, healing breath. Let us find our most comfortable positions for meditating, always with some attentiveness, even though relaxed. It's a bit of an oxymoron. We should be relaxed but attentive. As we unclench our hands, we might take the opportunity to take inventory of our whole bodies and try to release all the clenched places, all the held in, constricted sources of tension or holdings of tension. With that first breath, let us release all of the concerns that will be waiting for us when we conclude. So, unclenching from our heads to our toes, our jaws, our necks and shoulders, our arms and hands and legs, and even their toes that sometimes clutch to the earth itself, I think. And we take that first wonderfully full, attentive breath, letting go of all the concerns that we may have carried with us before we started. And be rest assured, they will be waiting for you. And if any of them miraculously disappear while we are breathing, good riddance. We might use as an inspiration, imagining a time of unrestrained love between God and the Jewish people. And if that is too esoteric or not accessible, just breathing is good enough. We might want to imagine God's love all around us and not be concerned at this moment with the entire Jewish people. Even an aura of love that surrounds us. In our imaginings. it would be a kind of sacred embrace. And if none of that imagery speaks to you, just focus on breathing in that gift of life, that gift of fullness, of healing, and letting it go again. Just the breath coming in and going out again. And if other thoughts take your attention, try just to notice them and dismiss them, knowing that if you need to follow them up, they will return to you. And if they are just random interruptions, we can let them go. I have two additional thoughts to round out this week's messages. After last week's low point of Tisha B'Av, of historical loss and destruction, this Shabbat is designated as Shabbat Nachamu, the Sabbath of comfort, as it is the first of 7 Shabbatot, on which words of solace and support are offered to the people of Israel by the prophet Isaiah. You may recognize the first words of this week's Haftarah portion: comfort. Comfort ye my people, says Adonai our God, as Isaiah envisions a time of unity, harmony, and love between God and the people of Israel, uninterrupted by any negative behavior on the part of the Israelites. To crown the theme of this week, it is in the Torah portion, Va'et Hanan, that we find the first paragraph of the Va'ahavta. Va'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, v'chol levavcha, uv'chol nafshecha, uv'chol me'odecha. In that first sentence, we are commanded to love Adonai our God with all our heart, all our soul, and all our might. It strikes me that we do not often characterize ourselves as a faith of love, when in fact the idea of God's love for us and for all of humanity is at the very foundation of our beliefs. While it is true that Judaism is also a religion of law, it is love that allows us to balance mercy with justice, punishment with pardon, forgiveness with repentance. We are taught that God's love for us is infinite, and in that love is comfort, solace, and safety. As I've already indicated, it is hard to imagine, let alone feel, God's love. If, however, we are created in the divine image, we might try loving ourselves as a first step to loving God, and ultimately to loving all of God's creatures. It is not an easy task, which is why we recite at every worship service and as part of our tradition, even before we lie down at night. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha. You shall love the Lord your God. Let us breathe on that for a few moments. We might even stop with the first three words. You shall love. And perhaps there is a place to combine that idea of being encircled with love with then loving out, loving others. You shall love. If we love ourselves, let us feel that. Let us feel an aura enveloping us in affection, in an embrace, in a protective circle. And feeling loved, we might then be able to say, V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha. You shall love. You shall love. Adonai, your God, in the way you behave in the world, in the way you act in the world, in the way you interact with others. You shall love yourself. Your dear ones. We might even imagine breathing in to some deep reservoir of feeling. In our souls and spirits. Some deep place of love. By way of conclusion, I would share the following with you. It is a creative translation of our most familiar prayer, created by Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi. Love Adonai, who is your God, in what your heart is, in what you aspire to, in what you have made your own. May these values, which I connect with your life, be implanted in your feelings. May they become the norm for your children. Keep talking with them in the privacy of your home and on the errands you run. May they help you relax and activate you to be productive. Display them visibly on your arm. Let them focus your attention. See them at all transitions, at home and in your environment. I wish you a week of increasing love, of increasing compassion for yourself. And I look forward to being together next week. God bless. Have a good week.